Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to our show. Got a really big show today, eh, Edward? Edward's special Ed Milewski is here, was a co-host as per usual. And it's election day in Canada.
Right.
I mean, how can you be in the cannabis industry and not vote green? Or is that a disingenuously misleading question and very revealing of my political orientation at this point?
Yeah.
It's not that easy being green. Kermit the Frog here. Anyway, so yeah, it's election day. Are you voting?
Well, I'm going to try.
You're going to try? What do you mean? You're going to get so drunk that you're not sure you're going to make it up to the ballot box?
Put your X here. In case you can't write your name, put your X here.
Put your X here, your paw print.
Yeah, you know what I keep watching, and I want to, because we're so awash in debt, right? The world is so indebted.
I'm not.
I know you're not.
Well, I am, technically.
Okay.
I owe the government money.
180 today on the 10-year rate in the States.
Yeah.
If it gets over 195-ish, like when it starts getting into the 2 level, money's moving out of that U.S. bond market, and if that starts to happen, rates could pick up pretty fast.
So people start selling bonds.
Selling bonds, which rates go up.
Rates go up.
Why? Because they think the interest rates are going higher. Mm-hmm. So they want to get out.
But don't they want higher interest rates if they're bond holders?
No, not because they're fixed. Everybody that owns a bond, they're in a fixed rate. So I don't know what their rate is, but they've enjoyed such a big capital gain because rates have plummeted.
Oh.
They want to maybe we should get out of these damn things. Maybe they're going to go back the other way for a while. Today gold is down $7. It's now close to $11.80 again, which is, I think, $14.80. Anyway, we'll look at some charts later.
Yeah, there was a survey was done by a company.
Survey says
in New York that was sponsored by Fox Business that said if Donald Trump resigned, there would be a huge bull market run.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, probably if he doesn't resign, there'll be a huge bull market run because, I mean...
a guy came out today, I forget his name, and he said his name wasn't Happer or something like that. He has a show.
Yeah.
And he said Donald Trump is a shoo-in for the next election on one thing and one thing alone. The average American, according to this guy, has $5,000 to $6,000 extra a year since he's been elected.
Really?
Yeah.
In taxes?
In after-tax income.
In after-tax income, but what about the fact that tariffs have caused the food prices, the fuel prices, all these prices to increase?
There you go.
So it's
I'm just saying what he said, and that's what people vote on. He said that's been the history more than anything else. Is how do you feel better?
Do you feel better? That's not the same as having more expendable income.
If you don't like Trump, you don't like to hear that. If you like Trump, you like to hear that. I'm apolitical, so it is what it is. Although I think Scheer's going to be our new prime minister tomorrow.
Really?
I do.
Why? You don't think the Green Party will win?
Well, the Canadian dollar's been pretty strong.
Really?
And that's usually a right-wing kind of thing, right?
I have no idea.
It's so, who knows?
Exactly. I don't, it's gotten to the point where I actually don't care who wins because there's only so much any political party can do in the environment that we're in. So,
I agree.
So what's the point? The best thing that could happen to politics is politics becomes disintermediated by online referendum systems, which the fact that we don't have that, like when you think about it, politicians are arguably already obsolete. Because if we live in a democracy, then politicians are there to operate the democracy. But if the essence of democracy is merely a vote, which that is the essence of democracy, then what do you need all these people for when everything else is tabulated automatically and by self-participation? So this is, but the thing I was thinking is that do you think that the costs of the unemployment insurance applicants would go way up, because what else is a politician good for? Okay, all politicians,
all right.
I'm just working on my material.
Yeah.
Don't take it
You're
personally.
going to Yuck Yucks tomorrow night.
Exactly. Seriously, I'm thinking that's probably a better use of my limited skill set. Anyway, so today, let's see. We've got, today is the last day that we're going to have the news. And that is because our data has indicated that the news doesn't matter to anyone, because they can get the news anywhere.
Well, I kind of think that.
And because we're sort of specialists in not the news, keeping the news involved is kind of like a waste of everybody's time and nobody watches the news. And in fact, if you notice, most people don't actually, the bulk of our audience doesn't sign on until after the news is over.
And how long do we take to figure that out?
It's a year.
Just kidding.
The other thing that the data showed decisively is that female newsreaders get far more views than male newsreaders.
Shocking. Shocking.
Which leads me to think that most of our news audience was male.
Most?
Or lesbian.
Or they.
Boy, are we having fun with this today.
They.
Anyways, here is Laura McCallum with the news.
The last news.
Here's what's making cannabis headlines this Monday, October 21st, 2019. Canopy Growth provided updates on developments in the United Kingdom and Luxembourg. In the UK, the company's pharmaceutical business, Spectrum Therapeutics, has received licenses which will allow import cannabis products to the UK directly from Spectrum's European and global markets. Spectrum Therapeutics has also become the exclusive supplier of medical cannabis to the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. The contract will see Luxembourg receive medical cannabis from Spectrum's licensed facilities in Denmark and around the world until December 31st, 2021. Harborside announced that the U.S. tax court has issued a final decision on the income tax deficiency for Patients Mutual Assistance Collective. The company is a 100% owned subsidiary and owner of its Oakland Cannabis Dispensary. The U.S. tax court has ruled the company owes an aggregate tax deficiency of approximately $100 million USD for the fiscal years 2007 through 2012. Indiva announced that Health Canada has approved its license amendment, adding 10,000 square feet of production space. This additional square footage will be used to manufacture edibles, increase Indiva's flower production capacity, and enable new growth in the production, manufacturing, processing, and refinement arms of the business. Nutritional High International has entered into a 5-year binding framework agreement with Golden Triangle Health Company to manufacture and distribute branded products in North America. Golden Triangle clients will import products to the U.S. to be infused and packaged. Global Triangle is a Thailand-based health and wellness company with a family of brands. True Leaf Cannabis has been added to the OTCQX Cannabis Index, the performance benchmark for cannabis companies trading on the OTCQX Best Market. Forefront Ventures announced that following the closing of its merger with Cannex on July 31st, the company has taken Cannex's operating capabilities and applied them to the Massachusetts market. Cannex operations are now part of Forefront's production and manufacturing division, Brightleaf. And that's your news for today. To keep up to date with all things cannabis, visit the Cannabis Daily on MidasLetter.com.
Anyways, so also coming up today, we are going to talk to Bob Brillon, who is the CEO of Vapen MJ. And there's nothing, oh, there we go. And then Robert Fagan is going to be here. He is the healthcare and cannabis analyst at GMP Securities. And we had a great conversation. But apart from that, Ed, you were saying that there is some indication that...
Somebody wrote that it looked like there's been this bias towards, things slowing down. And all of a sudden, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. Okay. You read it, and it says that, and this will be reflected in interest rates, right? Like I said, the 10-year rate's 180, but if there is a perception that inflation is starting to kick in a bit, then the equities showed benefit, and less benefit would be to the U.S. equities, which are already near their highs.
Right. Huh. Interesting.
3,004 over 3,000 again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. That's the S&P.
The S&P.
The S&P. Remember the A&P?
This is another version of that.
The S&P? Well, the A&P was the Atlantic and Pacific.
Why don't you go to the A&P?
Yeah, and pick up some coffee. Because remember, the A&P used to be a grocery store. The S&P?
Then someone would say, well, why do I have to go to the A&P? Why do I have to go to the A to P? I can't just do it at home. A&P, get it? A&P.
Oh, Jesus.
Why don't you go to the A&P?
Yeah,
Okay.
why don't you go to the A and P instead of the Y and P? Oh my God.
I know. Okay, so where are we here? Where are we?
Where are we? We are in downtown Toronto. If we take a look at the cannabis indexes here, the Canadian cannabis index is off just 0.17%, down 11.22 to 65.65. The Midas Letter small cap index is down 1.09%. The CSE index 1.5%, and the venture index down 0.54%. So, interestingly,
They're not blasting off, are they?
they're not blasting off, but they're not plummeting either.
No, I think they're trying to build a base. I think because of that correction over the last several months was so severe,
Yeah.
it's going to take some serious work in terms of technical action.
Yeah, I have some concern about the condition of the stocks, though, because this week, Green Growth Brands is reporting earnings, that's on Wednesday, and Hexo is reporting earnings on Thursday. So Hexo is already down today, 9 cents, which is
Hexo kicked me a bit right in the
right in the keister?
in the kahunas.
Oh, in the kahunas.
Yeah, I was long.
Yeah.
And then I held on Friday night, and they opened. They dropped down. I got stopped out right away.
Oh.
You know, another little gift to the winners
Another
from the losers.
Another pearl of wisdom in Ed's long
You know what? I'll
necklace.
tell you. You know, trying to find a good when the sector is bad, it's a lot easier finding a topping pattern than it is to find a low. You know, like we're seeing, right? It's not taking off real.
So what does your technical analysis suggest in the case of, let's look at weed, for example.
Yeah.
Weed is up 0.64% today, so more or less
Are we
flat.
looking in the? Here's one. 2654, right? 2672.
Right.
Okay.
Bingo.
Bingo.
Yeah.
You know, here's the problem with weed.
Well, I know what I am familiar with the problems with
Oh,
weed.
did you see what Kramer said about weed? They needed a packaged goods CEO. Packaged goods CEO. He said that on Jim Kramer is.
Yeah.
Do you?
He was on Seinfeld as the sidekick for many years. Oh no, Kramer, the stock guy, CNBC.
Yes.
Basically the American version of us.
Yes.
What is?
No, he said that company needs a packaged goods someone who's
What company?
Weed.
Weed, CGC.
Yeah.
Weed needs a packaged goods CEO. Well, they got one. Well, they've got.
Well,
They've got they've got Constellation Brands' entire executive team at their disposal, I would think.
So there's the chart, and I just want to say one thing. This kind of a trend, which is basically since May, okay, that's fairly entrenched. I mean, that shouldn't turn on a dime, especially when you're seeing the kind of action. So right now, it's still pointing south. Hard to step into that pattern for me.
It's like trying to catch a piano in Wile E. Coyote.
I used to watch it all the time.
Yeah.
Beep, beep.
I saw Jim Carrey do an imitation of the coyote catching a piano on Johnny Carson, an old Johnny Carson rewind. Anyways, so looking at the entire cannabis sector in the large caps, it's pretty indeterminate. Kronos Group is up 2% to 11.15, meaning that entire saga of the of the after hours stock manipulation, net drove the price higher and drove it to a level that, you know, has basically dislodged it from its negative trajectory. So the question remains as to what the hell happened and who the hell was behind that.
Okay, I got Kronos up here. Well, it's 8:50 as we speak, right? In the U.S., is this in the U.S.? I guess it is. Yeah.
Oh, right. I'm looking at the Canadian version, 11:15. So sorry. There we go. It didn't.
Well, it did.
Hold
But you had
higher
to switch.
levels.
You had to switch countries to get it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the big buy-in last week started at 725, correct? And they drove it up to 1150 USD, which is what it's at now in Canadian.
Well,
anyways,
here's a 1 month
so now
chart.
it's back at 825.
Oh, that's.
It's not really evidence of its a long-term effect. Anyways, so
Yeah.
one of the interesting little bits of news was that the U.S. tax court issued a final decision on the income tax deficiency for Patients Mutual Assistance Collective. The company's Harborside's 100% owned subsidiary and the owner of its Oakland Cannabis dispensary. And they ruled against Harborside, so Harborside just got hit with an $11 million tax bill. Harborside, yeah. So if you're wondering what's happening with Harborside,
Well, what's the ticker?
Harborside's ticker HBORR.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Down she goes.
Yeah, $1.44, up a penny. Flying. Okay.
Yeah, so not a lot of excitement there. Indiva announcing Health Canada has approved its license amendment, adding another 10,000 square feet. Pretty sure that's going to get all of the glorious reception due that of a fart in the wind. But yeah, so it looks like our cannabis industry today is characterized by more or less indifference. Like it's not going higher, it's edging lower. It seems to be stuck in that drift pattern. And here we're at the top of the week of the third week in October. And I don't know what to read into that. It just
it doesn't look like this is one of those a bounce that's very, very quick. Like this is taking time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like there's enough action to make it really blast off here.
Right. So let's see here. Let's pull up a chart.
Well, let's look at Trulieve got included in some OTX cannabis index.
Oh yeah?
I just read that. Yeah, you got some good feed here.
Good feed?
Good feed.
Good chicken feed?
That's what the chickens want. Good feed.
Good feed. Yeah.
You know another word for feed? What they used to call it back in the day when I was running around.
Scratch.
Chop.
Oh, you know what they call pigs' food?
What?
You know what they called pigs' food?
Chop suey.
Slops.
Get it? Chop suey.
Get it, slops?
Suey, chop suey. Jesus.
Oh boy, we're digging at straws here. So
I'm trying to get you to laugh at my jokes, and you're getting me.
Don't you hate it when somebody answers a joke with a joke?
Oh.
It's like, what the hell's going on here?
All right.
Did you hear the S&P? Did you hear why the S&P crossed $3,000?
Why?
Or 3,000
points
to
go to the 3001
to get it to set a new high. No, this is my trying to work up material on the fly. Clearly an abject failure there. Boy, it takes a lot of balls to do that. I will say that in my favor.
A lot of balls?
Yeah.
How many?
Two. Yeah, anyway, so we had a nice chat today with Bob. Actually, it wasn't today, it was yesterday with Bob Brillon. He's the CEO of Vapen MJ, and here's what he had to say. Bob Brillon joins me now, President and CFO of Vapen MJ. Bob, welcome.
Thank you.
Bob, I'm happy to talk to you and a little bit surprised to hear that you actually make money in the cannabis space. So let's start with an overview of Vapen's business, and then we'll dive in more into the details of how your financials are turning out.
Sure. Vapen is a vertically integrated company so far in Arizona. So by that I mean cultivation, extraction, and dispensary. That's one license. And we also, through the dispensary, sell wholesale. The dispensary's name is Herbal Wellness Center, but through wholesale we sell under the Vapen brand. And so Vapen is sold to the Curaleafs, the Harvests, and 65 other dispensaries there in Arizona.
So what is your product mix like in terms of processed goods versus premium dried flower?
Sure. In the dispensary itself, we have about 50% of our revenues come from the dried flower. And then the rest is Vapen extracts, which is shatters and waxes. Also the cartridges, which the distillate cartridges for Vapen. And then we also have kitchen Vapen, which is everywhere from your cookies, your candies, and candy bars.
Okay, so most recently you reported revenues totaling 1.2 million, and how are your margins? How is your EBITDA shaping up?
Sure. I think you might be looking at that was probably net income, and our 6-month revenues were 13.2. We had EBITDA of about $4 million on that 13.2.
Oh, okay.
And then the net income after tax was about what you were saying, I think 1.2.
Right, okay, interesting. Great, then so the vaping crisis hasn't affected you. Have any of your products caused any health issues with any of your customers?
None that we're aware of.
And vapes are a small part of your business, I understand.
Well, and obviously the vaping crisis, a lot of that is nicotine based. You know, they're saying the big clouds are the issue, and we have nothing to do with nicotine. The other thing they were pointing out is that the vitamin E acetate was causing a problem. Those are people that actually do distillate, but they cut it and put the vitamin E acetate in it. We have nothing to do with that either. So ours is straight distillate, straight THC, and up in the high 90% is what we do for purity.
Okay, and so what's the competitive landscape like for you in Arizona?
There's 108, 110 different dispensaries, and so that's our competition, but at the same time those are our customers because we sell against them on the flower side. We don't sell wholesale flower normally, but we sell our Vapen brand extracts and kitchens and the cartridges to those competitors, if you will. But there's a lot of customers there in Arizona. There's about 200,000 currently in the medical marijuana market. The great thing for us and for all of our other competitors is it looks like it's going rec in November 2020. Our friends to the north in Nevada, they saw a 10 times revenue jump in the first month when they went recreational. So we're excited to see that happen.
Sure. What are your future expansion plans?
In Arizona, we have built a great core, but what we're known for is our extractions and the Vapen brand. So what we've done now is we have partnerships, joint venture partnerships that we've done, about 8 of them that will be up and running by the end of this year. Those are in states like Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Ohio, Nevada, California. And on the hemp side, hemp farmers, we're working with Arkansas and Kentucky, then also Hawaii. So that's our expansion plans, and that'll actually dwarf what we've done in Arizona in 2020.
And how important is the SAFE legislation to your business?
The
SAFE banking?
The SAFE banking for us right now, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Just because we have a bank and have had a bank for the last 6 years in Arizona. As we expand, it will be important. So, so these, like Nevada really doesn't have any good banking. California doesn't have any good banking. So it's going to be important for that to happen.
And going forward, how do you see your product mix shaping up for your customers in the rec space?
In the rec space, what we've seen happen in other states is that more of it goes towards the edibles. And that's why we brought the edibles line on 2 years ago, and we've been expanding it. It's a very good margin business on the edibles side. And then also on the Vapen side, they've seen that jump up also because people don't jump into the rec market and go straight to a joint or a dry flower. They more like to go into something that's a little more discreet.
Right.
Yeah.
You have an unconventional share structure in that your founding group, your insiders, control the vast majority of the shares, and there's very little out there. So as a company that makes money and has this remarkable sort of share ownership, I mean, I could see where you might be considered undervalued by any fund manager who knew what he was doing. Tell me about that unique structure and the arrangement by which you guys are actually keeping a very tight float.
Well, really, it was more because the founder owner, Tai Nguyen, he never brought any money in, never sold any of the company prior to December when we decided to go public. So we did 2 friends and family rounds, did about $10 million Canadian raise during those rounds. One's in December, one in May when we got listed on the CSE. And so that's really the only shares that are out there that aren't related to himself and myself. And so it's nice to have that ownership structure so that, you know, if we want to do something, we have control. At the same time, as you can imagine going forward, that will shift. And at this point in time, as we're becoming really a cash cow, we're going to be generating and throwing off a lot of cash. We're going to become a target to for some of the big boys. And we're in this for our shareholders and ourselves. Well, you know, build that value.
You bet. All right, Bob, that's a great update on the company. Thanks very much for joining me.
All right, thank you.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Make sure you never miss a show by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking on the little notifications bell. If you're interested in getting monthly actionable investment ideas in the cannabis space to your inbox, subscribe to the newsletter at MidasLetter.com. This thing's not working at all.
How you doing there? What do you think of that?
What? Oh. Yeah, there you have it.
What?
My pack's not working again.
Your VAT.
My pack, I can't hear anything.
Your pack.
Yeah.
6-pack? You got a 6-pack?
Well, 1 pack. Well, 1 pack.
One.
But you know what?
Everybody's got a 1-pack.
Yeah, mine's solid. You? You got a 1 pack?
I got a 3-pack.
A 3-pack. 2 on one side, 1 on the other?
2-pack Shakur. 2-pack.
Dead guy. You're a dead guy now.
Jesus.
Anyways, so out of all these cannabis companies, Ed, where do you see something interesting
you know what? They're
happening?
gonna. I think.
It's like the whole industry's putting me to sleep suddenly.
I know. No, it's a tough market, and the junior market is almost non-existent represented by the venture, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where money's going.
Well, what good are we then?
No, I think people are starting to focus on this interest rate thing. I really. Do you want me to put up the chart?
Well, if you insist. I mean, personally, the only thing that more exciting than looking at the variations in the 10-year interest rate is, pretty much everything is more exciting than that. So, but I guess I hear what you're saying. That is causing the hesitation and the lack of conviction in the market. Is that what you're saying, more or less? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Look. So this is what we've got here. This is, I think, crucial because rates have moved and we've got a bottom here and a bottom here. And this is a 6-month chart of the 10-year yield. And now, if we can move, you can draw a line there. And you got to do it accurately, but you could argue, that this looks like this rally in interest rates could be with us here for a while, and that I wouldn't be surprised if that has something to do with the fact that gold's off. More and more talk about that. I'll send you an article too when I get a chance.
Great. So somebody else wrote, or you wrote it?
No,
I'll read it if you wrote it. If somebody else wrote it, no
I
interest.
Pilfered it.
No, just kidding. So what is the story with gold? Why is gold acting this way? Just its usual contrary manner to the industry.
If you've got a bunch of money and you think rates are going lower, you're saying I'm getting the hell out of this instrument, and maybe I'll put money in gold because low rates aren't good for. Rising rates, money moves out of gold. Lowering rates, money moves into gold.
So the rising interest rates, though, how do you juxtapose that against the the trend globally for government debt to be negative.
That's why you have to, that's why it's so hard to make anybody even think about it. They say, you're full of shit. Rates are going lower. It's unanimous. Everybody's convinced rates are going lower. Well, guess what? When everything's when the opinion is unanimous, usually it does the opposite.
Really?
That's usually what
So
happens.
looking at that chart again, though,
Yeah.
I mean, we saw a bounce in interest rates from the period of.
Well, this is a
intraday?
1 year now. This is a 1 year. Okay.
Okay, so there's another bounce there not so long ago.
Yeah, and then it came down, but not as low. In other words, you could say, is this looking like something that's changing?
Well, again, looking at the chart, there's higher low
Yeah.
and higher highs
Right.
over the last period, which seems to suggest a reversal in the trend.
Here's what I look at. And this is something I think Dan would talk about. I like the way he says you got to wait for higher high. Look, this thing is moving out of this little tight range. Maybe look at we'll just keep following it, but we're looking for a reason why the markets people want to see higher rates make the banks stronger. Banks stronger, markets are stronger because there's such a big component.
Bank stronger, Jane happy. Bank weak, Jane miserable.
What about Tarzan?
Tarzan,
He's
don't
always,
care.
He's always happy.
He like hunt. Anyways,
He likes what?
speaking of hunting, we had a discussion a little bit earlier with Robert Fagan, who is the head of cannabis research for GMP Securities. And he's focused on U.S. MSOs primarily, so it was a very revealing conversation. He had some great insight, and here's that conversation. Robert Fagan joins me now. He's a healthcare analyst of equity research at GMP Securities Limited. Robert, welcome.
Thank you.
Robert, you're focused primarily on U.S. cannabis names, I've noticed, and so tell me first of all, what's GMP's sort of long-term outlook in the cannabis space generally? Why are you so attracted to the U.S. over Canada?
Yeah, I mean, the Canadian industry has obviously had a longer kind of growth cycle and development than we've seen in the U.S. It's more, I think, more at the infancy stage for the U.S. market, and like we saw in Canadian companies more near the outset, there was tremendous growth opportunity, and I think that, with the size of the potential U.S. cannabis market being, arguably 10 times larger than the Canadian one, then you're going to have an opportunity to capitalize on that, extended runway for growth, especially if, eventually federal legalization happens. And,
Sure.
I think, especially with the recent downturn, you might have some interesting entry points for some of these U.S. cannabis names.
You bet. So what is the institutional bet on when federal deprohibition is likely to occur?
Look, I would have to say that maybe going back about 9 to 12 months ago, there was, I think, some that expected this could happen very quickly, maybe inside 2-3 years. I think it may take longer than that, given some of the extended time frame we've seen for some more recent federal reform to pass through the legislative process. So, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would think it may be a little longer than 2 or 3 years.
The Safe Banking Act, if it passes, that's going to be a major step forward, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like a very significant, reform that is being considered the federal level in the sense that, it can certainly open up, I think, bank debt opportunities for these U.S. Operators and perhaps lower the cost of capital. And, there's speculation abounds, but, perhaps it could unlock some other institutional capital to flow into the sector, which is certainly something that would be beneficial.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so specific names, you've got some favorites, obviously, that you're covering. Why don't you tell me about some of those?
Sure. One of my favorite operators is Green Thumb Industries. This company is just, I think, a standout performer when it comes to compliance with with state level regulations, and of course it's demonstrated very good operational efficiencies thus far. It's generated probably the highest EBITDA level in its last quarter amongst its kind of multi-state operator peers. The company has a good balance sheet. It has about $90 million of capital free to deploy. And, I think its upcoming results for Q3 should be quite strong, demonstrating, again, its strong operational execution, and I think it's a go-to name as a result.
Cool. And what about Trulieve Cannabis? I mean, I share that one as one of my favorites, too.
Yeah, I mean, Trulieve is definitely another strong operator. It's demonstrated a dominance in the Florida market, of course, and maintained a very strong market share. In my view, even despite a big level of competition coming up around it, I think in the last year it's maintained roughly a 50% share of the market, where competitors opened in excess of 100 stores compared to their 37, I think. So obviously they've dialed in their operations, their supply chain works really well. And I think it's another company that could do very well with upcoming Q3 results.
We've seen some projections from some of the bigger names, Green Thumb Industries, some analyst estimates, and you were saying that you believe that they're in a position to exceed some of those estimates?
Yeah, I think that my own estimates for the upcoming Q3 results would basically portray that. I have actually right now an estimate of around 13 million in EBITDA for the Q3 quarter, which compares to the current consensus of about 7.5 million. So it's quite already a higher view than the rest of the street, and I think that could be achievable just on the basis of some of the dynamics of their recent acquisition being included in their results for a full quarter this upcoming Q. They did an acquisition of a company named Essence in Nevada, which historically had some very strong revenues around 70 to 75 million run rate and at a 35% EBITDA margin. So if we kind of dig into that a little bit, for this next quarter they should have a full contribution, which I think could generate somewhere in the area of 20 million of sales, and at a 35% EBITDA margin would be roughly 7 million of EBITDA contribution from just that acquisition. My overall revenue forecast for Q3 is about 64 million. So if I take out that 20 million coming from Essence, it leaves about 44 million in kind of standalone Green Thumb Industry platform sales. Now, in the previous quarter, that kind of portion of their business generated, I estimate, around a 10% EBITDA margin. So all the company would need to do is to get that portion of their business to go to about 13% EBITDA margin in order to bring in that extra EBITDA to get to my $13 million estimate for the quarter. So I think that's very achievable, especially because Green Thumb is going to have in this Q3 a full contribution from their Massachusetts recreational operations, which are good margin business, and they also have a platform in Florida which is vertically integrated and obviously carries higher margins as a result. So I think that my number is attainable, and if it does get to that level, that would be probably about a 60% upside to the current consensus view.
And what about Trulieve?
Trulieve is another one where I think the Q3 numbers could be very impressive. I actually went out and raised my forecast for that quarter about a month and a half ago, just because the data that we get from the Florida Department of Health is really pointing to really strong results. So we get weekly data from the Department of Health there, and what we've seen during this Q3 period is very strong extract product sales and as well smokable flower product sales, which were recently made permissible by the regulators in that state. So if I kind of break down those volume numbers aggregate those volume numbers that the Department of Health provides, and I take some selling price assumptions, I think that the company could generate up to $80 million in revenue for the Q3 quarter. And that compares to my current number or revenue estimate of 75 million, and the rest of the analysts which cover the stock, which are at a roughly $65 million revenue number. So putting it together, you could have almost 20-25% upside on the consensus view.
Harvest Health Recreation was on track to become the biggest operator among the MSOs, assuming they can close the 3 transactions currently under scrutiny by the Department of Justice. But they've also got some questions around whether the debt financing that they had arranged is going to close, and there's really been no information on that from the company.
Yeah, the debt financing delay, I think, has impacted the stock, obviously. I think that the company does have other sources of capital that it can draw on, especially it having announced an availability under a convertible debt structure for up to $500 million. They've drawn about $100 million of that. So there is the ability to, I think, further leverage that facility. And there's other sources of capital I think that they could draw from in potentially doing a sale leaseback transactions for some of their assets. But certainly, the delay in that last financing structure, which was not convertible but more of a straight debt with some warrants attached, and the delay around that has impacted perhaps some people's expectations for when they could see more capital infusion into the company. That said, they did have about $100 million in cash on the balance sheet as of the last quarter. And with some of the pending transactions, I think that that could use up some of that capital, but not put them in such a precarious position as may be reflected in the stock price. So,
Sure.
I think there could be some opportunity for a nice rebound in that company should they have more clarity around the financing situation.
Yeah, so that's the opportunity that kind of excites me about Harvest Health is that if the DOJ is going to be a nothing burger, as some people like to say, and the financing is going to get done some which way and they're in good shape, well then this has been oversold to like a high degree.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the valuation metrics. Based on our numbers, the stock kind of trades around a 4 to 5 times 2020 EBITDA multiple.
Yeah.
Which compares to probably around 8 to 10 times for some of its comparably sized peers. So certainly, it's got perhaps more torque potentially on the upside than some of the other names. Should we get that increased visibility?
Yeah, you bet. Okay, and then you do have a couple of Canadian names here. I see Hexo, and Hexo's, something that I'm focused on a bit because they've come out and sort of drawn first blood in the price war by launching this low price weed that sort of comes at the black market head on.
Yeah.
Do you see I know you focus on U.S. mostly, but do you see that the competition between black market and licensed markets is going to continue to be a challenge for all of the licensed producers, both in the U.S. and Canada?
Yes, I mean that's the main driver of the kind of secular growth in the cannabis industry is the ability to capture market share from the black market, obviously, and in Canada that's been a little bit hampered, obviously, by the rollout of some of the physical store networks. Although I would think that it's not doing as terribly as some people may suggest recently. I mean, if we look at the sell-in volumes from Health Canada recently, and you annualize that, it may suggest somewhere in the area of 120 tons of sell-through into the legal channel. Mm-hmm. And if we look at some of the PBO estimates that can initially size the Canadian market at maybe 650 tons, you might be able to calculate that about 20% or so of the black market has been transferred to the legal market in Canada. That would be, I think, a little bit behind some of the original states that legalize in the U.S., where, for example, states like Colorado and others that were early ended up transferring, I think, about 70% of the market share from black market to legal market over the first 3 years or so of their programs. So it's not, let's say, as rapid perhaps in the Canadian market than we've seen in the U.S., but not terrible. And I think that the U.S. market will continue to have more states legalizing recreational sales and ultimately capturing more of that black market opportunity.
Right. So you think the incremental acquisition of black market share, boy, that's a good one, is going to continue for the licensed producers, in favor of the licensed producers, more so than going the other way?
Oh yeah, I think it's like you had mentioned, Hexo getting their pricing down on large volume purchases to roughly $4.50 a gram. I mean, I would say that's actually lower than some black market prices that are observable in Canada. So if the pricing is a contributing factor, then absolutely that's going to help with an acceleration of market share transfer. I think there's pricing considerations in the U.S. as well that factor into that, but I would think it's less of a consideration maybe than in Canada, just because I think historically U.S. cannabis prices in the black market have been higher than in Canada. And the risk factor has been so kind of pronounced for consumers in the black market in the U.S. that that's kind of a factor which drives increased adoption in the legal market on the state side. It's just so much safer and so much less of a a risky situation to be able to get into the legal channel there.
Okay, great. Robert, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll come back to you soon, and we'll see you soon. MedMen is going to be reporting earnings on this Thursday. Oh, sorry, not this Thursday. Next week.
You know, we should find out in the next week or two who's reporting, and then watch the action. And I think that'll help us decide whether or not these things are at the bottom.
Yeah. Well, so we have Green Growth Brands is reporting on Wednesday.
Okay.
Hexo is reporting on Thursday.
Okay.
And next week is MedMen.
And there's probably others.
Well, I don't find those ones very representative because
Indicative of what? Yeah.
Green Growth Brands is still a transaction waiting to happen, more or less. Hexo has already withdrawn their former guidance and guided much lower.
So do you think they'll surprise a bit to the upside just to be sneaky?
Well, I don't think that they would do that, only because they would look flippant rather than sneaky. Because
Snippy.
Flippant,
Snippy.
flippy,
Be a name for a little dog, eh? Snippy.
or flippy.
Or Flippy.
That would be a good name for a dolphin.
Flippy.
Flipper. Can you make a dolphin noise? No, you have to be dancing on your tail while you do it. Hey Ed, can you do the shuffle?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
The Soupy Sales Shuffle?
Nope. Charleston shuffle.
The Soupy Sales also had a shuffle.
Did he?
The Soupy Sales Shuffle.
Can you do it?
Yeah, I probably could do it.
Let's see.
Let me think about this. I think it was something like this. Like, should I do it?
Yeah, let's see.
Okay.
Can you do it?
It was something like this.
Go to the back screen here, Ed.
Back screen?
Yeah, go back there.
Okay. So
Here's Ed with his
this is Soupy Sales Shuffle from Detroit, Michigan. Something like this.
That's not bad.
Anyway, you Google it, you'll say Soupy Sales was just on the show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll know
What'd
better
you-
than
did
to
you-
challenge
what'd you think? What'd you think?
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, well,
The next time we'll try to play some music for you and see if you can keep the beat.
the Soupy Sales Shuffle, and there's a couple variations there. There's a few moves. I was just getting ready, but need slipperier shoes.
Anyways, we're
shuffle.
looking at a chart here of MedMen, and obviously,
Okay, let me take a look.
obviously the market is not really buying into the company's story lately. As you can see, it's down here today, $1.41.
Yep.
Down from 245 even just a few weeks ago. And it's just been, one could argue that it's been tarred and feathered with the downward draft. But this stock was
What's the length of your
$8.
chart there?
Sorry?
What's the length of your chart?
My chart is 1 year.
I think you can see a much more. Yours was a year.
Yeah, this is a 1 year chart.
Oh, I gotta. Okay, let me put up a 1 year. I want to see what we got. Yeah, well, it looks a little more dramatic on mine, but again, this does not make me want to go buy this stock.
Right.
And now, if in the event that this happened to be a bottom down here, if this was like a little rounding, and that was going to be, Sure, but you don't know that right now. There's nothing to say. The volume is sort of in line with what we've seen.
Well, that's just it. It's
Like this is a theme that seems to be being repeated.
Well, this is it. So this is why I think
This is it.
looking at the earnings from the three companies next to report is not going to be a very good thing for the industry as a whole, because they are all sort of already expected to be quite negative, except in the case of Green Growth Brands, which I haven't heard of what guidance there might be around that. But certainly MedMen has been cautioned about, because their expense base, as Robert Fagan said in that interview, is much higher than its peers. And certainly Hexo has already cautioned that their earnings are not something that they're going to be necessarily too proud of.
Did you see that the Hexo CEO came out and said that cutting the cost to compete with the black market, that was not a loss leader type of move. In other words, they can make money. That's what he said.
Well, I read the same piece, and he said...
Oh, maybe he didn't say that.
He said that it is not a loss leader move, but when pressed, would not give any details.
Oh, ho, ho.
So, that sounds to me like wishful thinking.
Do you have to be part of the press to be pressed by someone?
No, anybody can be pressed.
Right.
But the press are just the biggest pressers around.
Right.
Because that's what they do for a living. That's why they're called the press.
They press you.
They press, they press, they press. But anyways, I did read a review of some about the brand of Hexo pot, which is called Original Stash. And the review was very good. This guy gave a very detailed review, fully, looked like he knew what he was talking about, and it seemed like he was pretty impressed with it.
He was, eh?
All the descriptive qualities seem to, be as good as can be expected from cannabis store
Did he talk about the high? Now, was it a specific brand?
Yeah. No,
because they must have several brands, no?
No, the brand that Hexo has rolled out is called Original Stash.
Okay.
The label puts it at 15% THC. Now, that's pretty high for a cannabis store.
Pretty high to get you pretty high.
Well, it would get you pretty high pretty quickly without pretty much any resistance. So that's basically.
So we got MedMen to follow this week.
MedMen's next week.
Yeah, and we've got
Green Growth,
right,
and Hexo.
Oh yeah, this week. Yeah. I think I'm going to hang up my trading hat for a while.
You're gonna hang up. Well, see, this is just it. I'm looking at the market. The market's drifting lower incrementally, and we've got these three guys who are our next results. Which
you say the market's drifting lower, but we're talking about the marijuana market, because as we saw, the S&P is back over 3,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. You think it'll start marching through new highs or not?
The S&P?
What's your gut feel?
No. My gut feel is that, it depends. How do you think interest rates are going to impact the S&P if they go lower? Because my expectation is that government debt is headed lower.
Right.
And
government debt?
U.S. debt is headed lower.
What do you mean it's headed lower? Like
the Fed is going to, at the next meeting, they're going to cut rates again.
Okay. Yeah, they said that. That's right.
And so...
That's priced in for the end of October. That's priced in.
Right. So,
there's about a 92% chance that rates will be cut.
So if they cut those rates, I mean, that doesn't necessarily follow that the 10-year is going to be down as well.
I know, but the 10-year rate, I got a funny feeling, is going to stay up, and we're going to end up with some more of these overnight problems. The
repo market.
Repo boy.
Well, the repo stuff has been ongoing.
Remember the movie Repo Man?
I do remember the movie Repo Man.
It was the best, eh?
I should say I remember the movie. I remember watching the movie, but I haven't watched it in a long time. Actually, that would be a good one to watch again.
Yeah, that's beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Green Growth Brands.
Shall we look at that chart?
Yeah, look at Green Growth Brands chart and see what you can discern.
GGB.
GGB.
Oh, that's not it. Okay, now was it 318? No. You know, here's the problem with this new system that you've foisted on me. Now I don't know how to do anything.
Oh, well.
Okay, so what's the other one? The other one is Chronos. Let's look at Chronos. No, it's not Chronos. It's Hexo. Have we looked at Hexo yet?
No, we haven't looked at a chart.
Well, we're going to look at it right now. And here, folks. Well, I don't know if that's... Yeah, I guess it is. No. I don't know. Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, we're going to put up a 3-month. There we are. Actually, I'm going to just put up a 1 month because I want to show the action here after the bad news. Okay?
Sure. Talk about it. Talk to me.
So here we go. Here's when they announced it, right in here. Stock's like 370. Mm-hmm. Or no. Wait a minute now. I can't. Yeah. This is in the States. Sorry. This is why this is confusing to me. Sorry. So it was 370 US, opened down here, and since then we've been sort of backing and filling. This high has not been seen since the opening day. That was just over $3, which was around $4 Canadian. I don't look. This thing has got to get over here, get through here. It's got to take out that gap, and then maybe. We'll have to wait for news.
Yeah. Bring on the news.
And they're coming out Thursday. We're going to watch that very closely.
Fantastic.
So, shall we have a look at the S&P?
Let's pull up the S&P.
Oh, yeah, that's no good. There we are. Yeah, I think we may have a major move in the U.S. stock market coming, just to drive all the Democrats nuts.
Yeah.
Here we are, 3,006. Okay, so we're right at the highs of the day. I'm going to put up the 6 month just to put things in perspective. There's the high. There's the test that failed, didn't come all the way down, and here we are back at here, very close. And in this chart, the lows are getting higher, definitely. So we got to pen it. Which way is it going to break? I think we're going to find out in the next few days.
Huh.
Look at that, eh?
Amazing.
You probably think I'm an electrical engineer or
How
something.
about green growth brands? GGB is a symbol.
Is it this GGB in the U.S.?
Nope.
What do you press for over here?
Here, let me show you.
Okay. Show me.
So, are you? Oh,
wait a minute. We got to get this out. Okay, now.
Okay.
There we go.
So this wants to be
GGB,
and it says no symbols, but that's because you're on CFD here as your choice. So let's put it on all for you until you figure out how to get out of that. There we go.
Oh, you just helped. See, now I learned something.
There you go.
I'm a learner.
Okay, so look at that chart and tell me what's going on.
Okay, so this is, let's just see, how much time have we got here?
2 minutes. It's a 2-minute technical analysis challenge.
All right.
Are you up for it?
Yep.
Can you do it?
Yep. So
What time
obviously,
frame are we looking at there?
3 months.
Okay.
Gonna do my click on my chart. Back in here, there was some bad news. The stock gap down, up, a little bit of up, continuation lower, new lows, rally here, not as high as here. The first thing we got to do is we got to get through here, which is $1.75.
Okay.
And the problem with companies that have been much higher and then they come down, it's so hard to get them back up there because so many people now are underwater and they act as like the fear factor.
Right.
You know, when the stock isn't acting well, lots of fear.
Okay. So if you were to look at the chart and the action that's going on right now, knowing that they're going to publish their financials on Wednesday, what do you think? How would you categorize the market reaction right now?
Well, $1.59. We got as low as $1.12. I mean, it's trying to look for a reason to rally, right? And when's the news come out?
Wednesday.
Well, the first big level here is $1.75, and then the next level is whatever this number is, which looks like it'll be about $1.93.
All right. So, is it positive, negative?
You know, unfortunately, right now it's right where it's trying to, and it's got to get through here. So let's see what happens in the next few days.
All right then.
And we're going to get some news. If the news is bullish, I suspect we'll get through here.
All right. That's our show for today. Thanks for watching.
Okay.